In this world, there is still much mystery and darkness to explore, with only the moon to light our pathways. So let's join hands and begin the journey together. Welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe.
Listeners out there and watchers on the Facebook Live, if you're on the Facebook Live. Tonight, we've got Cindy McKean. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. The Kansas City Astrologer, and she's here to drop some 2023 astrology trends and maybe some retrograde info. So with that, I will hand it over to my lovely co-hostess with the mostest, Wendy Schindler.
That would be me. Well, all right. It looks like we are now live streaming as well on Facebook as well as Spreaker. And like I said, we've got the ever lovely Cindy McKean with us here today and going to have some fun astrology talk and first show of the year. So here we go.
Thanks for having me back. I was looking, as it turns out, I was here almost exactly a year ago, a year and a day ago.
That's what it looked like on my records too, but I wasn't positive. I forget. Gosh darn memory.
I forgot too. It was I think it was my Facebook memories or Google memories that came up that just pushed it through. So it's a good place to be at the beginning of the year. So
oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time.
No problem.
Now, Jake has a day job emergency, so he'll be mostly absent tonight, I believe. And but that's okay because we got this. We know all about this.
Good.
Yes.
And let me see. I'm supposed to be looking at Spreaker, right, with the chats there. So
yes,
I'll see if
please.
anybody came on.
Okay.
Yeah, no
yep. And I'll pop over to where we are live streaming, hopefully. and monitor that for questions, thoughts, comments, the whole fun shebangy.
All right. So I'm going to say everybody, hello. Well, it wasn't quite a, at the end, but.
Okay. Getting myself back to here.
So let me ask you. Oh, no,
yes.
Sorry. How was your 2022?
Oh, it was, it wasn't terrible. It was kind of busy. About June hit a hiccup with the health pretty hard. So went on hiatus for a while and just kind of trying to build everything back okay.
Yeah, that takes time. But as long as you're diligent, it actually works out. So thank God for that.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Mine has been really, really busy. And I think 2023 for all of us is going to be one of those years. Not necessarily bad, but I think the hardest point for everybody was really accepting what was going on in 2020 and that it didn't just gradually happen. It was like kaplunk. It's putting you right in the middle of things.
Yes, sink or swim, here you go, right?
Exactly. And there was no going back, right?
Right.
So a lot of people now are pretty much resolved and they seem to be a bit more grateful if, for the peace they could find here and there. So that's good. We're kind of tenderized, so to speak, right? So when I talk about 2023 being tough for some people, nothing is going to be as tough as it was in 2020, at least not for 2023. but it is going to be a bumpy ride. There's going to be a lot of changes that not necessarily get heralded in, but they more or less kind of get introduced to us.
Okay.
So it's kind of like around this time last year, everybody was hearing about Putin thinking about, invading Ukraine. And honestly, not too many people really cared, at least stateside. And then when it happened, everybody was like, oh my God. But no one was surprised because at least they were prepared for it. Usually with wars, they don't announce, I'm going to, it's like punching someone in the face. You don't say, sir or madam, I will punch you in the nose now. No, you just go ahead and punch him.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that for war, although he, I know he calls it a special military operation, but whatever it is, it's still, yeah.
Nastiness.
So basically, and so that's kind of what 2023 brings, is a lot of introduction to more changes that would come in around 2024. And then of course we got bigger changes coming in around 28 and then 30, but I'm not going to touch on the 28 and 30 or even the 24 as much. I'm focusing on 23 today. So the biggest thing that really changes is Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius. So it's still in Capricorn as of now. It won't move into Aquarius until March 23rd. And it was in Pluto. Pluto was in Capricorn since 2008. So that's what, 14 years? It's going to be going on 15 years.
Yeah.
So the theme of Pluto in Capricorn was more or less, you are under surveillance. And that's when we saw more and more introduction. Remember the late 20s where these cameras were coming out and like in traffic or dash cams or,
and the drones and everything else, right?
Yeah. And the cameras on our phone were getting better, and selfies were not really a thing, but they were on their way. And so a lot of things were kind of like hidden in plain sight. And then people, you get to see them finally, and there's not much you could do because Capricorn is about structures and government. And that's just, it was like, it was being laid out there. So Pluto in Aquarius is a disruptive sign. It's funny because Aquarius also, it's because it's ruled by Uranus in modern astrology. Uranus is more the disruptor, actually. Uranus is the one that brings about a lot more changes. Therefore, it kind of translates in Aquarius that way. And the funny thing is that Aquarius is also a bit of a fixed sign. If you've met any Aquarians in your life, man, they could be pretty dang stubborn. So the way when we see a planet go through a sign, we got to think of what the sign really means. It's usually about forward thinking. It's about being unconventional. It's about acceptance of things that are not normal to us, or not what was normal to us, rather. And it's technology. It's breakthroughs. It's connecting through electronics. So I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that. Like, here we are on Spreaker and Zoom and all this stuff, and we're connecting. And this is the norm now, right? So that's going to be even more of a norm. But Pluto in Aquarius, and it stays in there. I think for about 14 years. I have to look up the end date in that. But over the next decade, because Pluto is a slow moving sign. So over the next decade and a half, what we'll see is a lot more development of, like, say, the virtual meetings that, here, I got this fake background on. Well, it's going to be, you have your own little dome and you're in your own fake immersion, and both me and you could see each other kind of sitting at a table virtually, not, like maybe a hologram of you, or, I put those Google Horizon, what's it called? Oculus on and stuff. And, the whole immersion of, electronically taking over our senses. It's the other thing that is going to be going on with Pluto and Aquarius is more and more wearables start to become implantable. More development of technology that could actually fuse with us. Um, I, one of the things I was reading about with Elon Musk that he's inventing is some kind of implant that you could get on your eyes, so that all you have to do is like take any book, flip through it, and scan through it with your eyes, and you've read the whole book.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah. Now, I hope it only goes to very smart people, because I'd really hate to see something like that in the hands of someone dumb.
Who had no
It'd be pretty
understanding of
dangerous.
what they were reading. And
Exactly.
Mhm.
I know it. I read in a book. Like, wait, that's not good enough. Yeah. But
Mhm.
and later, eventually, transplantable memory. So where they could actually kind of insert memory in your head, kind of like we used to insert RAM into our computer.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So that's actually a very good thing. In some ways, it's, say that you're a stroke victim. What it is one of the applications of that technology would be to download your memories. And if you have a stroke, those could be uploaded back into you. So that's, it's things that sound kind of freakish or outlandish are going to become very much the norm with that.
Sci-fi is once again going to lead us into it, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, get us tenderized for it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the way. Okay, so Pluto is. You've heard of plutocracies. That's like absolute rule, and in
Mhm.
absolute rule, of course, you rule the money as well, because Pluto does rule over money. So Pluto in Aquarius is. You meld them together and it turns into technocracy. So absolute rule by technology. So I would say if you're not technologically inclined, you better start. I mean, this
Okay.
technology has been around for like 25 years, and there's always some dinosaurs out there that just absolutely reject it and refuse it, and they still want to get, letters in the mail and what do you mean text message? But it's
Mhm.
right. So that's you got to get that. We have to adapt to this. Yeah.
Right. And I would imagine a lot of that's fear for a lot of people. I mean, I know that it's like if you can conquer the fear or the nervousness around your electronics, you've got it made, or at least that's how I feel anyway. If I can go, okay, I know I'm not going to erase everything if I press this one button, so I'm good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And it's also about, believe it or not, a lot more inclusion. So the
Okay.
inclusion, it kind of makes sense, because now around the whole world with the whole migrant situation, like in Europe, a lot of the migrants are coming either from Ukraine or from North Africa, the Middle East.
Mhm.
And in America, it's coming in from Central and South America. So the acceptance of other people that are not us, that's a very Aquarian thing. But it's also about trying to keep everything as egalitarian as possible, despite the plutocracy, the technocracy will have. So, it's it's kind of like an animal farm. All animals are created equal. Some animals are more equal than others.
Right.
And yeah.
Yep. I understand
we're
that. Yeah.
so we're not in that more equal than others club.
Mhm.
Where everybody else, where the rise of, so probably one of the evening fields is like the universal basic income that is going to become a lot more ubiquitous, and that everybody gets pretty much the same size house, the same size car, if they get a car, the same size allowance, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of changes that come up over, I mean, really a lot, like whatever we've seen in the past 14 years, maybe double or triple the speed that occurred.
Okay.
I hope that doesn't mean that every single year now we have to trade our phones in instead of every 2 or 3 years, but yeah, be ready for things like that.
They
Right.
change so fast anyway, so you're right.
And the other things like governmentally, I would think that would be a sense of maybe rebellion, revolt in some ways. I think a lot of the problem is that, a lot of people are trying to get the new form of unions back, and unfortunately we're going up against corporations that have all of the old game books and every single trick in those game books. We don't have access to that. We're barely getting taught math in school anymore, or we're not really being taught history, and whatever history it is, it's interesting.
The victors.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and then the stuff that really is the good, juicy stuff that we could learn from, they're not going to give that power to us because they've already learned their lesson in the 60s. And I think what was going on in 2020 was more to let people get out and vent. But people are still going to try to get out, and that's good. I think it's important, instead of just lying back and taking it, so to speak. So, the changes in the United States, I think really that occurs more towards the end of this decade. But for the time being, I think 2023 in the United States, at least, near the second half, more like fall or winter of next year, like I guess the last third or last quarter of next year, that's when we're going to get a lot of crazy things happening with the crimes and who knows even if it is much more of an increase in crime, or if it's more of a reporting on those crimes and spotlighting it. But whatever it is, the result is the same, where it gives you a sense of instability in the world, unfortunately. Because Uranus Aquarius is about shaking the ground that you're on. The card in tarot that this would relate to is the Tower. So if you've seen the Tower, where that big lightning bolt comes and knocks the people off of their tower, but at the same time, there's an earthquake. So I mean, it's kind of like, if it's not gonna, you're getting out of there, you're getting out of there. Like, again, I don't think it's going to be as tragic or as terrible feeling as it was in 2020, but it would surprise you. There's still a lot of people out there that really hope and wish and think that we could actually go back to 2019 and resume from there. But that's just not going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So in your own personal life, what Pluto in Aquarius would bring, of course, it depends on where it lands in your chart, but generally what it would likely do is, believe it or not, make life a lot easier. So it could bring automation to the home. You could use a lot of ISTP, like, if this, then that, ISTP. And the sense of gadgets becoming aware of your routine, this type of artificial intelligence that gets to know you better than you know you. Not in a way that's evil or manipulative, but more so in a way that, oh, okay, well, Wendy just rolled up to the driveway, so
turn on the inside lights, right?
Yeah, exactly. Basically like that. I think those things make everything a lot easier. Oh, and of course, more of the electronic vehicles and, the plugging into a central source. The next big thing that happens this year is, actually, it happens a little bit earlier than Pluto, but Pluto's the big thing because takes 14 years for it to change, whereas in Saturn takes about 2.5, sometimes 3 years to change signs. So Saturn is the planet with the ring around it, and that ring represents restrictiveness, that kind of structure. So it's also, Saturn is, Saturnalia. He was one of the god of gods. Gods don't like to relinquish their control.
Right.
Jupiter, Jupiter was there. Saturn was there at one point. Zeus. Zeus is Apollo. No. Well, anyway, let me stay on track here.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
yeah. So it's like, Saturn, again, it's also about structure. It's about the things that are solid in life. So a building versus vapor. Speaking of
Mhm.
vapor, it's moving into the sign of Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune is very hazy. So when you bring Saturn, which is a precipitate, it's the solidness, with Pisces, which is an evaporate, it's the vapor. So really Pisces, what happens is sometimes you could get really excellent major breakthrough when it comes to research. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do make some headway about these viruses that we've been dealing with. New ways, possibly new vaccines coming out of inoculating us, for better or for worse, whatever it is for anybody. And it's also about, sometimes you can't remove anything by scrape. Like if you have a sticker on a product and you can't scrape it off, sometimes you could steam it off. So, that's a good example of how Saturn and Pisces could work.
Okay.
It also brings a sense of spirituality to people because Pisces is a very spiritual sign. Saturn would bring the discipline to spirituality. So where we sit there and we're like, yeah, we're good, our New Year's resolution, we're going to meditate. And yeah, that lasts for what, 7 days at best for most people. And then it kind of tails off. But Saturn will be there to make sure that we really start to do it a lot more disciplined. It's also a little bit poetic. So we might get, you might get more people that do, so more connectivity over the internet where you're seeing very profound speeches, very, small little beyond BLM, hashtag BLM or hashtag me too. Things that are a little bit more catchy, a lot more resonant with people. And the music is going to start to improve. Hopefully we get, nicer music where everybody finds a way to unify and sing kumbaya with each other, maybe, who knows?
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Right?
Mhm.
A lot of people say that Saturn is a bad sign, a bad planet. I don't think so. I think Saturn puts you up to task. If you're someone that really enjoys being chronically lazy and someone comes by and says, hey, get up off your butt and work, that person's not evil. The person's getting you to get moving,
Right,
it's getting
right.
you to be productive. So in that way, some people think it's evil. Plus the restrictiveness. If you want to spread your wings and, you got Saturn there saying no. But that's also not an evil thing. Saturn is really there to get you to work for the long term. So it has a 30-year cycle before it gets back to where it was in the sky with its orbit. And we measure the changes with Saturn in about 7 to 8 year increments. So whatever it is that you start today for the long term, if you could, track it and see where you are in 7 years. So someone that just starts college, for instance, and it's funny because I just met this young gentleman the other day. He just graduated from college, like this last summer semester or something, and he just started working. And his goal was, I just want to be rich. Okay, that's great. I think let's see what you do within 7 years to get there. And within those
Yeah.
7 years, right, it's about getting your degree. It's about establishing yourself at work, getting the network. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like getting that quarterly report card, essentially. By the time we get to the middle of May, so on May 16th, Jupiter, the planet, he was a god too. He was Zeus now. Apollo was the sun. So Jupiter will move into Taurus. So Jupiter is known for good luck, for expansiveness, for money, for jubilance. It's generally a good planet.
Mhm.
We have to keep in mind that too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So we can't have all the hot chocolate with whipped cream and marshmallows that we want and
Oh
think that it's
man.
going to be okay, right?
Yep.
Especially not when it goes into Taurus, which happens to love food very, very much.
Okay.
So for the generality of us, what I would say is, for, especially with Saturn in Pisces and then Jupiter going into Taurus, we have to watch our weight. We have to watch what we eat, because it's going to be the invisible, and I'm calling them invisible calories, where you really think that one tiny marshmallow won't make a difference, and it would really add those 5 pounds to your hip. I know it's
Marshmallows don't work that way.
They're the evil little atomic creatures that keep on expanding, right?
Ooh, like in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Right.
Yeah. Now Chris is in the chat room. He was here last time, and I think you blew his mind when you talked to him last time. And he's saying that, you do great readings and very accurate and hello and everything. And we've got Heather as well, and she was saying, like, we were going to become very Johnny Mnemonic, which I do remember that movie from way long ago. But
well, thank you. Hi, Chris. Hi, Heather. And I see that anonymous dude was on Spreaker, so hello to anonymous dude.
Oh, yay.
If anybody has questions at any time, I'm open to take them. Like, I don't need to get to my point and then let people ask questions. They could ask whenever they feel like it. So.
Oh yeah. We usually, you're very good at taking it in stride there.
Yeah, good. So with Jupiter and Taurus, like I said, just watch our weight. We could probably take a bit of a rest then, which is great, right? May 16th, and it's going to stay there for the rest of 2023. So it's a great time to be able to enjoy our summer. Really, if there is a summer to enjoy, it would be this year. It should help to bring homemade things up to the forefront. Now, with the supply chain management, and there's going to be a lot of food shortages coming up, unfortunately. And other shortages. I mean, I was just telling you during that Christmas week, I was driving through Iowa, and really they have a lot of agricultural fields. And I'm thinking, man, this whole state could supply the country with like bread. If Ukraine is the size of Iowa, and Ukraine supplies 40% of the world, well, why can't we supply our whole country with just this one state? So I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot more homegrown of everything in that way, where people actually have time to, they might start with one of those, upside down, topsy-turvy type of strawberry growth. And then they're like, I'm just going to grow it in my backyard. Yeah. Have you done that too?
I haven't done that, but I've seen in a couple of the homes that I sit the pets at, like the hydroponic with the light, and that was really neat. And the little tomatoes that came off of there was really neat as well. And just seen a lot more growing of vegetables and things. Yeah,
that's definitely that's going to be a positive thing. And interesting that you're mentioning the hydroponic, because I just forgot about with Saturn and Pisces. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2.5 years that once and for all weed gets legally, it becomes federally legal. So in other words, people building up businesses around that. And it's not only weed, but other things like entheogens, like the mushrooms, the ayahuasca, whatever it is that kind of expand your mind.
Okay.
And people building businesses on it. So, and even government possibly incorporating how that works in life with the general public. Like in Oregon, for instance, the government there actually has programs where if you were caught for some kind of drug offense, like a small possession of heroin or cocaine, not enough to distribute, but enough where it's clear it's personal use, instead of going to jail, you just go and you get psilocybin treatment. And that's organized by the state government. So we could expect to kind of see that a lot more, like starting to build up a lot more nationally even. Things just happen really quick over the next the rest of this decade. But getting back to Jupiter and Taurus, again, yeah, there's going to be shortage of some crops, but abundance of other crops. In other words, what it is that we seem to lose or not gain is going to be more than made up for with substitutes, but adequate substitutes. Not like, man, I really wanted an apple and I got a strawberry. It's, it's going to be like, I wanted an apple and this time I took a pear. Good enough, kind of close enough kind of thing. And then, those are the major transits. We have our eclipse season. So the first eclipse takes place on April 19th. And it's a new moon, of course, and it's a solar eclipse in Aries. Well, that's kind of a big deal because that is, so we have this cycle of when an eclipse goes through, usually just 2 signs, sometimes 3 signs throughout, 3 to 4 signs, but it goes in doubles essentially.
Okay.
So we had the great eclipse of, 2017 in America. So we're going to have that great eclipse coming up in April of 2024. And that cycle with the signs that it's in is going to be tied into what's happening this year on April 19th. It starts in Aries. And when you mix the moon, which is very emotional, with Aries, which is very combative, you get a hot mess. But sometimes when you have a hot mess, again, that's when things get done. It's like when you're at your wit's end, when you're angry, or when you're just, really trying to, just deal with any kind of overwhelming emotions. Aries is going to be there to say, well, just push through, ram right through it. It's also going to be very healing as a result. And it's going to be, it could also open the doors for more spiritual practice for people. So we get another, so we get the full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th, which is going to be in Scorpio. And it's kind of, I think that's around the time that we start to get bigger hits with music. Even people coming up with new recipes for different comfort foods that might be sensational around, comfort foods are not a good thing. So I'm not really trying to tune into that, but it's, yeah.
Sometimes it is what you have, right? So
yeah, right. It is. It does comfort you for the moment, right?
Yes.
And then when we go into October, so we move into the fall, and remember in April we started with the eclipse in Aries. So in fall we get the solar eclipse in Libra. So that's going to be on October 14th, and that has to do with coming a lot of things that you might not have seen or even suspected with relationships, all kinds of relationships, friendships, neighbors, loved ones. Things that were going on beyond the scene are going to start to get revealed. So that might be a very, very tough one for some people, but it's kind of nice. Imagine if you're with a partner and, your partner has been cheating on you for the last 7 months and you don't even realize it. And it's something about, whenever there's an eclipse, a new moon eclipse on, when we get a solar eclipse like that, there's usually a sense of, the invisible being revealed. So, yeah, it's a kick to the chest at the beginning, but it's also, it's Libra is also about fairness. So it is going to bring some fairness there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking cleansing, and I do this for cleansing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. A question of how much difference in energy is there between a full moon eclipse and a new moon eclipse? Or is there any
I think
difference?
It has to be a new moon in order to have a solar eclipse. Just how the planets land with each other. Yeah. The phases of the moon, I'll get into that after the predictions and stuff later.
Okay.
But
And Chris
yeah.
has his wife Annie is at a crossroads and kind of wanted maybe a quick reading if you have time towards the end or whenever.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So the you were asking about new moon and full moon. So full moon would occur 2 weeks after that new moon.
Right.
And so that's going to be in Taurus. And Taurus is more possessive. However, when there is a full moon, it's about reaching a peak, and then it's a new beginning from there, really. So new moon is starting a new thing, but full moon also is starting something new by getting rid of something that you were carrying, trying to get rid of a burden.
Okay.
So that is, it's interesting how the two are tied in with each other. What happens in October between the new moon solar eclipse and then the full moon that comes later on with just, the full moon lunar eclipse. So that would be the time where, you find, say in October, beginning of like middle of October, around October 14th, you find out about, your partner has been having transgressions that, you find you can't really swallow, and you're stunned by it, but you get your mind wrapped around it. And by October 28th, that's when you decide you could throw their clothes out the front door if you want. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, lose your temper and tell them, right?
Or just, make a clean start.
There we go. That's what I meant. You're much more eloquent than I am today. So.
No, so we have our Mercury retrograding in Capricorn right now. And you might have noticed some snafus with communication, and like I've noticed my phone has slowed down a lot and my internet has slowed down a lot. We had, the confusion happening with, the storm, that went across the nation pretty much. I don't remember national storms that would occur way back in the past, but
right.
right. It's like if a storm started on the West Coast, it couldn't get past the mountains of Colorado. So if you were like east of Colorado, you were okay from those. But nowadays it just seems
not
like
anymore. Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. That was a booger. That storm was a booger.
It was. But so that was like an example of a Mercury retrograde where even on the days that the storm was occurring or the blizzard was occurring at different locations, a lot of places were off by a day. So it just ruined up when it ruined a lot of the, the travel plans. Like you saw how Southwest Airlines had like 5,800 cancellations, all these people that were trapped in weather, like what happened in Buffalo, for instance.
6 feet of snow or more again.
So it's not really cool. And just as I shared earlier a bit about the, just driving through Iowa during that and all the vehicles that were on the side of the road or in the median that just kind of drove off. So those are, the travel type of snafus. That was like a really big one just because it was Mercury and Capricorn. But these Mercury retrogrades are weatherable. It's almost like being able to understand that, okay, it's going to be loud and messy. So just prepare for it. There's no way to avoid it. You just have to live with it.
You ride it.
Exactly.
Augie's here and he is helping himself to some treats.
Woof, woof.
I had a thought there and I lost it, and I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. So it was interesting. I came up upon this thing about 100-year-old predictions about 2023. And it was a bunch of, big thinkers of the turn of the century. You know how the occultism, so to speak, was becoming like a big thing in Madame Blavatsky and Rosicrucianism and, just the whole Hermetic tradition stuff. So nice big thinkers. And you know how people were differently educated than they are now, right? They were like a lot more polymathic, I guess, when you were educated. So some of the things that people kind of predicted were kind of eerie as far as like how accurate they are.
Mhm.
So one guy, his name is Charles Seidmetz. I think he was like an engineer or something, a physicist and an engineer and an inventor. And he said that we will have small radios the size of a watch that we could talk to each other like a telephone. We actually got those now. Yeah.
Right. The eye watches are interesting.
Exactly.
Hmm.
He also said, and I quote, in 100 years' time, man will be able to chat in the comfort over a telephone that can be used in his car, his house, or his train. He will not hear a squeaky voice saying, "What?" every few minutes.
Most of the time, right?
I remember when I was little, the trunk calls, the transatlantic calls, and
Hmm.
you had to book an appointment in advance with the phone company and give them the phone number and how many minutes you thought you were going to be on the phone, and you got that allocated time, and you get on the phone and be like, "Hello." And the other
I'm
person hears it like, "Hello, can you
right.
hear me?"
Or crackly static the whole way.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes they'd like, it cut off 20 seconds early, and the operator would actually call you back to give you the 20 seconds. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, so those are cool days. But it was expensive. It was like what, $5 a call, depending on a minute, rather, depending on what country you're calling.
Hmm.
It's just kind of crazy. It kind of equals about the same price when you consider the cost of a smartphone nowadays, right? We think about it that way.
Hmm.
Um, he also said public clocks and probably our watches will be kept in time by wireless, and by the same agency will be roused by whatever hour we desire to get up. So we have like Google Assistant and Siri and Bixby.
Hmm.
So it's interesting because he said things kept in sync wirelessly. Yeah.
That's
Um,
he knew what he was talking about somehow.
yeah.
The universe was
Uh,
speaking to him, apparently.
totally. Motor cars will be enclosed by a meter device that may pick up their power from government gas stations. Well, think of the electronic cars now. They're coming up.
Yep.
When I
Yep.
was driving through the States, they still have gas stations, but I've seen now electric stations, electric plugging
Hmm.
stations.
Hmm.
So
In a
I
lot of
don't
the
know.
parking lots, it seems like.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what's kind of scary is all they have to do is turn a switch on or off, right? Like a kill switch, and you can't charge your car. You can't go anywhere.
You can't,
Oh no, we'll have to walk. Oh
you
no.
can't steer your car.
Oh my God, that's scarier, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, this one, I don't see it happen. I mean, it's kind of happened, but not for everybody. An air service will land people from all parts of the world, not some point 6 miles away from the city, like an airport, but straight to the top of a hotel in a roofed arcade street. Maybe if your name is Trump or Biden or something, but I'm
That.
not I'm not at Bezos wealth yet, but
Hmm.
apparently, so that's kind of it's on, but it's off. It's not for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, so there's also a population explosion. So this guy named William Ogburn, so he's a professor of political economy at Columbia University. So he was saying that, well, he was kind of dark about it. He was like, living conditions would deteriorate and domestic troubles will multiply, but that we'd be able to control our jostling mobs with birth control. So I don't remember if they had real birth control pills at that time. I think it was the 60s that birth control pills was really the big thing, right?
Right. I think so, anyway.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So he kind of predicted that women would be able to control if they could get pregnant or not. And, of course, being a dude, he didn't nail it, but that's just between you and me.
Down with the patriarchy.
He also talked about a lot of migration, purposed migration around the world,
Okay.
as a matter of fact. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting as well.
Mhm.
Birth control advocate Margaret Sanger thought that women would be living happier lives and having longer honeymoons because birth control would become a part of education, health, and hygiene. So, as she says, and quote, women especially will be keen in demanding it. They will realize that it's a foundation of freedom and intellectual development for them. Women cannot make real progress today so long they are haunted by the fear of undesired pregnancy. So today, meaning 1923.
Mhm.
I wonder how on target she is with that, given the whole abortion issue. That's
I
coming
was
up,
I was
or that's here.
thinking about that too. Like, it did come into being for, the last 20, 30 years, or I'm sorry, I lose track of that and doing math.
Yeah, that's
but
fun.
now again, they're trying to put all of the restrictions and controls back in place. And yeah, we may have hit the high spot for a little while.
Yeah.
Hmm.
She also said that what was interesting is that there's going to be some kind of role reversals where women were going to go out and be the breadwinner. And she says, and of course, somebody has to tend to home, so that would be the husband.
Hmm.
You do see that happening more and more nowadays.
Yes. Yep.
It's not the thing, but it's a thing. I mean, it's not abnormal. It's not like it used to be a stigma
Right.
before if a woman made more than her husband.
Hmm.
So, and she was also a lot more optimistic. She kind of thought people would have nobler sentiment towards each other and, worthier sense towards each other. In some ways, I do see that, but in some ways, I see, nah, people are kind of nastier in some ways. So I don't know if she's really on target with that, but
Yeah. Though that one will probably always be a conflict,
yeah,
a power conflict.
yeah, right, exactly.
Hmm.
She also thought that long before coal was exhausted, that we would have a superior substitute somewhere among the atmosphere. So we're using solar power and we're
Hmm.
using wind power now. And she's saying we would no longer have to dig for coal. So we still dig for coal, but I don't know if we have to, but that's basically, she's saying digging for coal and digging for oil would become a thing of the past. Scientists will develop new formulas, chemical formulas for new fuels. So I don't know about the new formulas, but I mean, why not, right?
Right. Yeah. Stop the raping and pillaging of the environment. Right.
Yeah, totally. Pay us back. Just get
Hmm.
more organic.
Yes.
George Edward Linden, he was a journalist in New York.
Okay.
So he thought that wars would be a lot more catastrophic because they would be wireless. Basically, if you can't see your opponent, it would be easier to destroy them.
Hmm.
In other words, we don't, if you see your opponent, you might if you're sword fighting and you see the whites of somebody's eyes, you're either going to become more scared and mightier, or you might just have a little bit of mercy, right?
Right.
But once
Right.
they see the bloodshed and you're on the field of the bloodshed, people don't want to see that again, right?
Right.
But if you're in a bunker in a cave in Nebraska, and all you have to do is press a button to, blow
Annihilate
up a
the
bomb,
enemy.
and
Hmm.
exactly in Russia, it won't bother you so much. You just cheer and high five. So he
Hmm.
basically that's what he was seeing. I hope that does not happen in 2023, but we'll see. I mean, I don't
Right.
want to see,
Yeah.
but let's not see. You were talking about losing control of the steering wheel. He was talking about that. There would be wireless control of tanks,
Hmm.
automobiles, submarines, airplanes. So electrically controlled, where if someone doesn't like where you're going, they could just intervene and either stop your car or, turn you around.
Hmm.
I've read about things like that have already kind of happened. Not to the point where they're actually turning somebody around, but where they actually do stop your car. They'll pull out your car over in traffic, and then you're kind of locked there.
Hmm.
So
I figured it could happen. It's a new form of hijacking.
isn't it? I think it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in terms of architecture, this is happening as well. One guy, he's an architect, his name was Cass Gilbert, and he was the designer of that Woolworth building in Manhattan that's 792 feet tall, which kind of is a dwarf compared to the taller skyscrapers nowadays. But he was expecting more congestion in parts of large cities, fusion of large cities together, and isolated. These cities become their own metropolises. I don't think we're super isolated these days, but in some ways we are when we have that lockdown and the stay at home.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I prefer it, but that's me too.
Yeah. I could see the benefits of it because
Mhm.
I mean, if we could imagine it, why not conceive it?
Right.
He was also saying too that he sees more self-sustaining cities. What's interesting about that is I think Oxford or Cambridge in England are going to, the cities themselves, not the universities, but the cities in them that they're in, are actually going to have something called smart cities coming up, or a 15-minute city. So that means that you would be able to walk or bike ride within 15 minutes of any convenience that you need, whether it's a post office or a supermarket or a spa, that they're essentially trying to limit how many days you leave the city. You're allowed 100 days to leave the city. So whether you do that, every other day over the course of the year, or if you do it at a, 30-day spurts or 100-day spurts at a time, that's your limit. And if you go over that limit, you have to pay a penalty. So the whole idea is trying to reduce our carbon footprint. And this architect actually kind of saw that with the way buildings would be designed and cities would be laid out.
Interesting. And kind of frightening too.
It is. And I don't think it's really a healthy thing that we lock ourselves off from regions like that.
I don't think so either, and that's given up a whole lot of freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
No problem. So there is this guy who he was an expert on longevity. I don't know what makes somebody an expert on longevity. It doesn't say that this guy was a scientist or a doctor or whatever, but he theorized that by 2023, the average life of man can be increased to 100 years. We were getting there until 2020 happened. And now we're down to what, 76.8 is the average lifespan now. But really what we got to start doing is just taking care of ourselves rather than expecting that the environment would be there automatically taking care of us.
Right. Yes.
So,
but rely on yourself and a healthier living, as opposed to the shot from the doctor, or which I'm not against vaccines or anything, but still, if your foundation is healthier, that's just better all the way around.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny you're saying that, because sometimes when you drive through these really agrarian type of areas and you see the people, they eat what they're fed, but not what comes from the farm, because what comes from the farm doesn't go to them. It goes, I don't know if it gets exported or where it gets sent to. But we really have to kind of eat what's more from the ground near to us, rather than, getting our garlic imported from another country or wherever. But I don't see that that's too far off, living to 100 years, but then maybe over the next 20 or 30 years, we could finally get there. So.
I'm always amazed, I love going to the old cemeteries, that are just the rural type cemeteries, and looking at the dates on them, and longevity used to be longer, so to speak. You're looking at people in the 1800s living to be 90, 100 years old or more, and it doesn't seem to be quite so much the case on some of the newer stones and things.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
It is. Now,
And
infant mortality type ones, they were more common, but at the same time, like I said, the grandparents lived quite long, it seemed like.
yeah, it's like once you got past those initial humps, what was it in China? Didn't they celebrate the ages of 3, 5, and 7? And
Okay.
yeah, once you got past 7 years old, they pretty much expected that you would live a long time as long as you didn't do something stupid.
Right, yeah. And now we can watch that on YouTube.
Right?
Yep.
Now you can do something stupid and go to the ER.
That's
right.
right.
And then pass on those genes after you recover.
Oh, woohoo! Instant sterilization. There should be a button. Instant
Right?
sterilization. Yeah.
We can keep on dreaming. But
There
there was a Hollywood movie director, D.W. Griffith. So he thought that movies would start to become obsolete. And he said, as far as going to the movie theater, and he's right about that. Not too many people go to movie theaters anymore. He said motion picture libraries will be as common as private libraries, even more so. That's true. More people, I know people that have more movies in their Netflix thing than they have books on their shelves. So talking pictures would have been perfected and perhaps forgotten by then. He's kind of seeing a more immersive thing. So if you think about Horizons or Oculus again, where they're going into more immersive. Yeah, exactly. So, and then now they're having things where you can wear things on your hands and your chest to get the haptic sense as well. So, I haven't gone to Disney World, but I heard there was a little theater there where it's kind of like that, where they'll have a screen and there's like mice that run around, and then they'll have like these little frilly things that hit your ankles as if like the mice are hitting and locking. Yeah. So, a sensory experience, so to speak. So
was it, I want to say it was Hitchcock back in the day would rig the seating in the theaters for his thrillers, and about the time something would happen on screen, the seats would vibrate or move, or certain sounds come out for the experience.
We should have more theaters like that. That would be a lot more
I think
fun.
we should, yes. But maybe VR is more that way, makes it that way again.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I could see that. So we had, there was a Secretary of State. His name is Cordell Hull, and he was the chairman of the Democratic National Committee way back then. So what he expected is politics as usual.
Yeah.
He basically said, that politics are going to be the same, where there's still the same sweet talking and the same, lip service, so to speak. But that there might only be either two political parties and nothing more, or the fusion of the political parties, and it spread like, you could see 100 political parties. He thought the principles of democracy being eternal, he goes, they might not necessarily exist 100 years from now. And here we are, and we're kind of seeing some erosion to what's happening with our democracy, with our country, right? And look at all the countries that have experienced a lot of changes, especially, if we look at, say, the Middle East or somewhere in Africa, where there's a lot of revolutions that have been going on there. Pakistan, where is it? I forgot, somewhere in Southeast Asia, overthrowing of governments and stuff. But I mean, that it's kind of like he says, it is politics as usual. Sir Arthur Kent, an anthropologist from England, said that women would have shaved heads and men would have long hair by 2023. I think that already happened by the 60s, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. He said, in quote, "The barbaric origin of most styles is shown by the feminist aversion to showing the forehead. It's an instinctive urge to appear low-browed, and the theory of Caucasian women of 4,000 years ago that men did not like intellectual women," he explained. yeah, I don't know if I could have sat in a room with this guy. But
For a minute or two, maybe, as long as
Yeah.
it took you to fly across the room and choke him out.
right.
Yep.
And he also thought that more women would take masculine roles and men would take feminine roles. It's kind of like what that woman earlier I was talking about said, where there'd be a little bit of a role reversal. But I think he's a little bit on target with what's happening with the with Jake would know what's going on. I don't know these keywords, but there's the gender neutrality that's coming up, where, oh geez, what is it called? Well, anyway, it's basically where you decide your own gender, if you're male or female. It's not about what, if you were born XX or XY, but what you identify with, right?
Okay,
So,
right.
yeah. And
I
now
understand.
there's-
I don't know the word you're looking for either. I'm sorry.
yeah, I forgot. Now there's like the gender reassignment and you
Binary.
really can binary. That's
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. So we're going to have the non-binary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's we're not going by, either or, right? So, he was kind of right, but I think he was off with some of the timing with that.
Okay.
So, some other guide is just kind of random. The year 2023, scientists tell us we'll see men wearing flowing curly locks and all the women with shaven heads. So that was him again. I don't know.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
think you would, because you're a Leo and I have a Leo rising. I can never
Mhm.
imagine shaving my head. No way. Even if I had lice, I'd be like, I got to figure out a way to get rid of this lice
Exactly.
rather than
Yeah,
like shave my whole head off, right?
Yeah.
Like our hair is
My
our
head
glory in some ways.
is too round and bulbous, like Charlie Brown.
Well, I think I haven't had like that much of a close haircut for, I haven't seen my scalp like that since I was a baby, right? So I don't know how I don't even want to imagine or try to take a peek at it. What's interesting is a guy in the Caledonian Record, I guess he was one of the writers there, said by 2023 we're going to see the prices of egg go up to $10 a dozen. We're not too far off from that.
Apparently it
there's
did
some
go
places-
up there.
Yeah, there's some places that like the big major cities like Philly, Chicago, New York, Miami, things, people were complaining that their eggs were like $7 or $8 for a dozen. That's a lot.
It is. And I think I've seen the memes on Facebook a couple times and then I checked it out, and yeah, $6 and $7 for, a dozen or 18 eggs is not uncommon right now.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Especially with all the culling of the chickens that they've been doing. By 2023, women will be running business of the country. Yes, I hope so.
Yes.
And that was a writer in the Columbus Daily Advocate in Kansas. So
interesting.
That writer's, yeah. Do we have any questions that come up?
Well, Chris's wife was asking about a chart, but other than that, no real. Heather says the seats were rigged for like the movie The Tingler, and people got zapped actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, was with the elephant or something in it, or?
I don't remember. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it.
That's okay.
Where's Jake and his link dropping?
Right?
Yep.
He has to actually do work. I mean,
yes.
The obligations we have, right?
Yep. Day job stuff.
What is Chris's wife's name?
Oh, Annie.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I put it in our little side chat on Zoom.
Oh, let me see.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So this way we don't have to reveal. Okay, so Annie, because we are in the public? If, I mean, is she okay if it comes out about where she was born or where she was, her time of birth?
Well, Chris put it in the main chat on Facebook, so I'm going to have to say yes, that she's probably okay with it.
Okay, good.
Excuse me.
And let me see. Okay, and
Yes, share.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
And sorry, Roberta's in the chat room as well.
Hey, Roberta.
Yep, she has questions too.
Good. Okay, so let me try and get Annie's.
Okay.
And hold on, let me back this up. Okay, so Annie is a Virgo with a Taurus rising and an Aries moon. So, and she has a nice configuration in her chart where there's almost like a Star of David there, which is a very nice configuration. What's really nice with, I'm sorry, I was reading. Do you want?
I was too. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so what's really nice with Annie is that she actually is getting a reading right now, and that she's into this mysticism. I don't think that was something that naturally came to her in life. It was probably something that kind of dawned on her. One of those things where she would have had to break out of conditioning for it. And very, 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 very much a creature of habit. I mean, she has 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in Virgo. So, and she has that Taurus rising. So what she does, and she likes to keep it that way. And a very good person for the home. She would have been a very fun mother, a very accommodating, very generous mother as well. But man, you better have your beds made. Because she wouldn't, I don't think she would really appreciate it. Yeah. And that she is kind of, when I say tough, I mean strong. And I don't mean aggressive or any way, but that she can handle a lot more than she gives herself credit for.
Okay.
And she's a bit romantic, even though she's a very level-headed person. So she's got Uranus in her first house. Now that we're looking at the transits, Uranus is transiting through her first house, and Pluto is transiting in her 10th house. She's had a major change in the past few years. So her changes began before 2019. And I think for her, they were especially painful, mostly emotionally, just the change of, she had a very long-term plan. And if there's anybody that could follow through on long-term plans, it's Annie, because she is a creature of habit. So when it feels like it's forces from outside that came in, changes that were out of her control. And she's been adjusting ever since. So what's going to be happening over this year and next year especially is finally Annie 100% wholly and fully embracing these changes. So and taking it as independence and saying, well, you know what, I really relied on the structures that she had in life, the things that you thought would be there every single day, and suddenly they're not there. I mean, just think about it. Department stores are no longer there. Malls are no longer there. We're losing our gas vehicles to electronic vehicles, for instance. And this probably, all these kind of changes, modern changes, really probably tripped her up. Plus, it feels like there's some personal changes that might have happened at work or her career. And now at the beginning, it was like the ground fell away from under her feet. And she definitely is somebody that needs terra firma. And now she's finally starting to come around to it, where she's saying, okay, I'm embracing this altogether. So it's going to be a very good year for her. And the next, few years for her, you know, the one thing I would say is she's going to notice a change in some of her social circles, and they're going to happen organically. So as long as she keeps an open mind about who her friends are and her extended family is, when I say extended family, I mean the friends of hers that are closest family. That's going to be very, that's actually, it's a time right now for it to kind of not 100% shrink, but I think where she's remaining stoic, there's some people that are kind of just dropping off the line, where she's, either people around her that are retiring, or people that have moved away, or people that just, have naturally changed. So, or rather haven't changed. And, she's going on with the change of the world and everything. So does Annie have any questions?
Chris is saying that you're spot on, and it's a major life change. And
big thing for her is to make sure she eats as organic as possible, because she does, I think she's going to be good at that, but she really does have to get down to just the very basics. It feels like there's some kind of allergy that, or some kind of reactive state that she's in, that she has to clear up.
Okay.
So that would, in some ways that would kind of start with an elimination diet, and she could do it, but she needs the support around her, of the people around her. So it might be elimination of a lot of things in the house. Like if you guys have Pop-Tarts or saltines in the house, hide them, or just get used to her get used to not having it for like maybe 3 or 4 months until she figures out what exactly these triggers are for her.
Cool.
Good thing about Annie, she doesn't allow too much clutter to build up. So she'll get down to the bottom of it a lot quicker than most people would.
Okay, marvelous. Now, Chris says no questions, and thank you very much.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Chris.
Now, do you want me to put Roberta's 2 questions in the chat, or do you want me to read them out?
You could read them out.
Okay. So your thoughts on transiting Uranus on natal Chiron. And I'm sorry, that wasn't very flowing. Your thoughts on transiting Uranus on natal Chiron. Okay, yeah. And second question is transiting Pluto going into the 8th house.
Okay, so Pluto going into the 8th house is good, because it's kind of in its natural home. And it's a matter too of making long-term plans for your finances. It means counting absolutely all of your assets, all of whatever, if it's liquid or if it's solid. So if you own a house, count that in. If you own a car, count that into your assets, and make the long-term plans from there. If you do that, then for sure you're going to have stability for, as long as you need it for. I mean, I know Roberta's, she still has enough time to live on, if she wants to, on this planet. And as far as transiting Uranus on Chiron, what house is her natal Chiron in? She's listening, so she'll probably type that soon.
Okay. Haven't seen it yet.
So generally with Uranus crossing Chiron, it's disruptive in a way that probably has to do with family or partnerships.
Taurus.
Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
What house is that though? 11th house for her.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm trying to think of where it would be for her. Well, again, so with Chiron, and so transiting Uranus over Chiron is going to be a disruption of whatever wound that she's been carrying for years. And it doesn't matter if it's a wound from childhood or if it's a wound that was, that she got later in life, but it's a wound from family, essentially. And it's more about accepting that life, instead of holding on to what the ideals were, let go of that vine and grab on to the future vine where at least you got a vine to hold on to. And with that, let yourself swing with it, because Chiron is about, it's also a great teacher. So Chiron is about teaching you to, whatever it is. Chiron was also, he was abandoned by his mother when he was younger. He was considered the outcast because, he wasn't really, centaurs weren't really attractive, but because he was half god, he had immortality, and he did have adoptive parents, which is interesting about him too.
Okay.
So this was about, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, so he had adoptive parents. That was Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus is one of his adoptive parents. So Uranus is coming to teach Chiron something, to tell Chiron it's okay to let go. It's okay to embrace the new changes. That's really the biggest thing, because I do know Roberta is a Taurus, and Taurus, I'm a Taurus too. You don't like letting go of things. You don't like change too much. Let me see.
She does say it's for Mike. I think that's her son, perhaps.
Okay, so her son has a first house. Uranus is heading there. Chiron in the first house. Okay, so this would be interesting with the changes. So I know her son had recently had a major change happen in his life, a lot of good things. And it is going to herald even more good things to come. That means, so expect another move if Uranus is going to be transiting over Chiron, and he's very close, or he's already in or just past his Uranus half return. So for sure, it's more about him looking at the second half of his life compared to his first half of life. Not that he's only going to go, half more than he's already completed.
Okay.
But what that means is like the quality of life, in other words. So I'm expecting that with that, he'll be doing, believe it or not, a lot more outdoor activities. The reason I say that is I understand he went somewhere where the weather is not always inclusive for that. But it's also about the inclusion of new people into his life that, again, it's turning friends into family in some ways. So does Roberta have any other questions?
I don't believe
Thanks,
so.
Roberta.
Yeah.
Big hello to Roberta there. Let me see if I have your chart.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Let me see.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. She's saying, thank you.
Anytime, Roberta. And let me do transits for you.
Oh, yes, we're still here. We are perusing charts and things.
A couple big things for you, Wendy. You're
Okay.
going to really be grabbing your health bull by the horns. You're going to get the support that you need, thank God. But it's almost like you're at the point, like I'm feeling this almost in your heart. And I know you did say you had something going on with your heart before through some posts, but it's not
I have a bad artery.
Oh, okay. And
it's not fixable.
But I see that you're going to be changing your lifestyle in a major way in order to make it more tolerable.
I'm trying.
Livable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You will be successful with that. It is tough to get there because,
mm-hmm.
It's climbing a greasy rope, essentially.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But you'll get your grip on it. And what happens is that it's almost as if you have some kind of epiphany. And the reason why I see your heart there is that I'm seeing, more sense of awareness between you and your body, and more sense of you being alert to any small change in your body, and in some ways be more aware of it than the doctors would be. So yeah, I understand you might have like a monitor or something, but
my doctors all remark on how on top of it I am, and how I watch out for myself, and I'm aware of what's going on, what affects what. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm a little pig-headed that way, or I don't look at it as pig-headed though. I pay attention, and having the diabetes for the whole life too kind of made that a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But this is going to be more major changes coming up in a good way. There's going to be
Okay.
some, I don't know if there's going to be like an introduction of new foods or kits or something that makes it easier for you to manage food.
Okay.
But you find a way to attain it. So it almost seems not unattainable, but far away from attaining.
Mhm.
And you're able to bring it literally closer to you.
Okay.
And you really, really almost lead the physician team that you have working with you rather than them leading you or you following them blindly. Is you actually kind of not dictating orders, but just basically like, no, this is the way it's going to be. This is what I've done. This is how I want to do it. So
That's actually me now. So yeah, okay.
good, actually. That's Pluto transiting on your ascendant. So that's giving you power, empowerment,
Okay.
more of a sense of, that's how you're also talking with your body as well and
Mhm.
being in touch with your body. So there's going to be a major change to your lifestyle as well.
Okay.
Coming up later this year, you're going to move, whether you like it or not. It feels like you don't like it, but it's going to happen. It's actually going to be good for you because I think it takes you to a space where you're not going to bring a whole lot with you. You're going to
Mhm.
want to at the beginning, and then you're going to get so frustrated with packing and trying to, inventory and keep your mind on things. You're going to just be like, why am I keeping all of these things? And in moving without them, you're actually going to feel a release. You're actually going to be happy with it. And your new environment, I see kind of Spartan, but not in a bad way. It's more, you go more minimalist with your decor, so to speak, than,
Okay.
hey, let's fill it up with stuff.
Mhm.
One of the things you're going to be working on is kind of minimizing dust around you. I don't see any allergies there, but it's more like you kind of look at it like, how can I have me the way I want if I have my environment around me that's forcing me into something else? So it's like
Mhm.
you transform the environment around you in order to help your own transformation.
Okay.
And I mean, you really are going to be grabbing the bull by the horns in a major way. So that's a very positive thing.
Mhm.
Of course, monetarily with the move, your things are going to be a little skimp, but not to the point where you're missing meals or anything. Well, if
Okay.
you had
Mhm.
diabetes since you're younger,
Well,
that's just
yeah.
not an option, right? So,
Right, but yeah. But it's always,
um,
it's one of those, well, I may not have what I want to eat, but I do have food. So,
yeah. um, and your social circles are going to widen as the year goes on. Some of it is you traveling to other places, and it feels like you go there by car, maybe a couple by plane, but most of by car.
Mhm.
And others are people coming to your area where you're going to be hosting events and hosting and seeing things out in the fields rather than within haunted houses. You going out maybe haunted regions or
Okay.
you know
That
ley
sounds
line areas,
fun.
like,
Mhm.
yeah. You also going and visiting landmarks too that people usually don't hear of. So in Southern Illinois, there's this little part that they actually found like pyramid mounds there, and I do see you
Oh.
going there to visit. Yeah.
Well, God, yeah,
Um,
now that I know about them.
um, and becoming more of a person that draws energy from the ground up.
Mhm.
So, in other words, you plug yourself in, and that there's a few times that you're going to be walking barefoot in order to plug yourself in more. Of course, you have your retractable mirror with you, I know.
Mhm.
So there's no worries or fears about that. Um,
Mhm.
but it looks like it's over the next few years, you're really, really, really going to be taking very, very good care of your health. And I do see that some of the things that are unattainable, like I know you said that what's going on with your artery is unfixable, but
Mhm.
it really feels like within the next 2 to 4 years, there's going to be some technology that will be attainable, that will be able to fix it for you.
Okay.
So some development that goes on there. So that's amazing. Saturn right now is going to very soon, in about a month or two, be opposing your sun. And, Saturn is the restrictor, but the sun is all about brightness. And you put something that restricts the sun, well, it kind of makes you depressed. Don't worry about that. The planets move forward either way. Even if they retrograde, they still go on. So the sense of depression or sadness will spontaneously relieve itself. So by the summertime, you're really feeling, or even by the end of the year, you're feeling a lot better. So it's a lot more, it's not that I think the sadness is more, not necessarily sadness, but changing of of the way you look. In other words, you're going to be losing some weight too. And I really don't think it necessarily brings on depression, but it's tough when you're changing the way you eat and you have to, it's but it's also you being able, in some ways it's shedding skin. So there's growth when you do that, right? Questions, concerns, comments.
Chris says we haven't seen the sun in weeks, but
Oh God, I know. I thought that
Yes.
was only me that noticed that.
No, not at all. I did have that question about the. I put it in the event, and it was about I think the moon phase and the planet lining with it. And like Scorpio was something in there, and I didn't know what that meant.
I didn't know what that meant when I saw it either.
Oh, okay. Alrighty then.
But there were something about moon phases that I was going to talk a little bit about today. And that sometimes so we could look at our chart and say, oh, we have a moon in Taurus or a moon in Leo or a moon in whatever. And that gives us a lot of insight to how we react to things emotionally, how we nurture as a mother or as a parent.
Okay.
And one of the things that actually is important when looking at the moon is the phases of the moon. So the moon, as we know, it waxes and it wanes. And we have crescent moon phases. We have first quarter, we have the gibbous, we have the balsamic. So the phase that you're born under. So for instance, if you were born under a new moon, you're going to respond to life a lot more intellectually, more instinctually rather, and live in the moment. It's about the brand newness of things, the spring of things, right? So you could sense that you want to plunge into a new experience, have freedom to explore. Whereas if you're born under a full moon is a big reflection of the sun. So it's about the completion of all the hard work that came before that and, bringing it forth to the world to see. It's about the reflections. When the moon is full, we get to have, back in the days, in ancient days before we had, well, it's not so ancient, before electricity, full moons were the time that people, sometimes they'd have their parties at night because it was lit by the moon. And those people tend to integrate opposition. So it's about bringing people together, right? Under the light of the moon, you see less who's in front of you than under the light of the sun. And it wouldn't matter, right? It's okay, right? So it's about, most people that were born with a full moon would probably be a lot more inclusive with their attitudes. Do you happen to know what phase of the moon you were born with? I know I should probably try to
No,
look
I
at
do
that.
not. It was August 21st, 1966. So
let me take a look.
Yeah, Chris and Annie they're up north of Kansas City, not far from the Iowa state line. He was saying that.
Yeah, yeah, Iowa was an interesting experience because the people there are very nice. I just didn't expect all the openness with the land because, in Kansas City, it's kind of hilly.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah.
But I remember like when we were kids and they teach us about different regions of America, and that was supposed to be part of the Great American Flatland. So it makes sense that it should be flat, right?
Should be.
Well, it definitely made that part easier for cross country back in the day on horse and carriage, right? So let me see. You had a waxing crescent phase. So that means that that was already after the new moon, and the moon is building up its light. So, this kind of makes sense for you. There's breakthrough of old structures. You become a fully free individual. Independence of new ideas is key. And it's important for you to understand that the first step is the hardest, but new opportunities emerge. So the challenge that you face is to become independent of belief systems and concepts that are part of the past. And by asserting your will and determination, you will foster self-confidence and develop a new creative new vision. So here you are, like you march to the beat of your own drummer. You have Mystic Moon Cafe.
Yes, I do.
You were independent in your work, like you're a woman working among all those men, right?
True.
So, and the breakthrough of old structures. You're clearly not into keeping up with the old structures. So,
not at
here
all.
we are on Spreaker.
Right.
So essentially, if we look at our moon phase, and I never used to pay attention to this because I really prefer the sun. In the metaphysical realm, a lot of people are more into the divine feminine, which is the moon or Venus. The sun and Mars are more, and Jupiter are divine masculine. But the sunshine, I just, I was just like, that's it. It's the be all end all. But when I first started learning more about the moons, I used to ignore them. Like, who cares? Like emotions. But when I started looking more into them, it's really fascinating to see that the phase of the moon, whether it's growing or shrinking, whether it's in its, crescent phase or it's, the third quarter moon phase, whatever, as it's starting to shrink, the disseminating phase, actually has an impact on you. I like these new findings. I like too that with the James, with the Hubble telescope, the new telescope they have out, and they're coming up with signals that were from how many light years away. Imagine it. You get to see what really gets to transcend all the darkness, what gets to get past us. So yeah, definitely when we have the closest planet, the moon, the big, that's a big body of light that is so close to our planet itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it does make sense that the amount of, or what phase it is actually going to have an effect on us.
And I say I'm 50-50 on the moon sun draw. I love them both. So
yeah. Oh yeah. It's I still love the sun very much, but like you said, or like Chris said, we just haven't seen much of it lately.
Right. So. Exactly. Yep.
Do we have any other questions? Or?
No, Chris is saying that we can see to the beginning of the universe.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That exactly.
Heather was saying that she's or maybe that was mine, but waxing crescent moon in Capricorn for her.
So the waxing crescent, so it's growing.
Okay.
So that too is okay. So as a Capricorn, that's the opposite of what Cancer would normally like, which is, I mean, the moon would normally like, which is Cancer, but it becomes a very industrious type of moon. And because it's similar to your moon, the crescent moon phase, where it's waxing, again, it's about breakthrough of old structures. It's about becoming a fully free individual. So if you're here on this chat, that makes sense. You know, because we're here in the mystic realm, right?
You're exactly.
It's about like, it's not about necessarily kicking the convention or whatever social norms we have, but it's about you get to do things on your own terms. That's
Very
pretty cool,
good.
Heather.
Yeah, Chris we live in interesting and enlightening times. He's a sun person and Annie is a moon person.
Good. That's really good.
They're
This way
good.
they don't have to fight over the same planet. No, I'm kidding.
Everything is connected. That's his kind of go-to motto. Okay, Heather's asking, how does having both rising and sun in the same sign affect someone?
Sometimes it's a good thing because you're more, the mindset would be your sun, and then the motivation or your approach rather would be your rising sign. So say your sun is in Aries and your rising is in Aries. Well, you're not going to get in your own way as often as somebody, say, that had an Aries sun with a Libra rising. So it actually works sometimes in your favor, but sometimes it ends up becoming too much of a you know, double the trouble, so to speak. And that, like, say you were at Aries with an Aries rising, it might make you come across to people as too assertive, too aggressive. But overall, I think it's, you know, these are things that kind of complement each other. It's kind of like saying, you know, the difference between, okay, so if, you know, Wendy's American and let's pretend, you know, when we know Heather's American, but let's pretend that Heather is Italian American. Well, that would be like her rising sign being different from her sun sign. But at the end of the day, she's still an American. She just might eat a little bit more pasta, right?
Right.
But,
okay, and Annie is a waning gibbous moon. Excuse me, my nose again. Waning gibbous.
Okay. Let me see what the waning gibbous moon is. So it's people, they have an innate desire for perfection, having sharp analytical minds that they need to understand. The keywords are initiative, perfecting analysis, and developing. And the gibbous phase is transitional phase, growing from instinctual spontaneous movement to conscious deliberate action. Analysis and growth are the biggest descriptive words. And gibbous moon people have a strong urge to make life something of value. So value, I think, would be the biggest term there, with a sense of purpose. You have to live what you believe in other words. Constant questioning and self-evaluation are the other hallmarks, and perfecting what has been created of great importance. So you really do have to live what you believe in. If you don't live in your true self, that would probably be a very, very painful thing for you. So I think that you would more likely be living your more authentic self than other people. And if you're not, you're probably going to get sick a lot. So
I would call them some of the most authentic people I know. So
that's cool.
Yeah. But well, I don't have any more questions there. Jake, are you around anywhere?
I am.
Hi, Jake.
Hi. I had a work emergency, folks. I couldn't be on the full show.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, they happen all the time. Like I had one last week, so there.
You know, yeah, it can happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I did listen to about the last half hour or so. So that was really interesting. I'm fascinated by this stuff. I should take lessons from Cindy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I should do something with that, offering lessons online or whatever.
Ooh, yeah. Everybody's into the learning these days. And
Mhm.
Annie says thank you. And
Welcome,
very
Annie.
true. And hey, Jake.
How you doing?
Jake, you're coming across pretty soft.
Oh, now I'm right in front of the mic.
Oh,
it should be
okay.
better.
Well,
I
then
was-
it's
I
my
was trying to-
ears.
No, so I got a new mic. It happens.
Okay.
I test out mics, and some of them, when I'm to the side of it, still sounds pretty clear. In the
Mhm.
case of this one, cuts you off really fast.
Oh,
Yeah, it happens. That means you don't hear the dogs bark to the side of me or Roxy as she's gnawing on her
true.
bone.
True.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, Augie. Augie had something fragrant for dinner, and it's
Ooh,
making itself known.
it's
Oh my
it's
God.
effervescent.
Yes, effervescent. There you go. I better blow these candles out before they blow up.
I mean, mining disasters always make great shows. I'm just saying.
Right? Keep it as explosive as possible.
That's right.
Burn my eyebrows off or something.
It's 1913 in the coal mines of West Virginia when Wendy is blown out. Anyway, we're getting a little tacky there. That's okay.
That's all right. That's all right.
So, folks, I guess we're at the point. Cindy, if someone wants to book you, get a hold of you, chat with you, more importantly, book you for a reading so you make cash money, because hey, it's capitalism. How do they do that?
They could email me at info@kansascityastrology.com. And or they could go onto my website, www.kansascityastrology.com. And they could either book through the calendar if there's an available space, or join the wait list, and then I get back in touch and book you guys.
Okay, cool.
My readings are very mind-blowing and insightful, so I highly recommend them, even if I might have a bias towards myself. So
I will say we've had Cindy on quite a few times, and
Yes.
it is enlightening, folks. Very enlightening. Book her now.
Thank you.
She's
And I know that our yeah, our audience here was going, yeah, sorry, Heather's death aim, yes. But he didn't have any broccoli that I know of. But I've dropped links to your website in the chat several times, and Chris says thanks for a great show and being on at a better time. Oh well, okay.
Easier, right?
Not on the West Coast, but
right. That's the problem of spanning several time zones. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Well,
well,
Wendy.
thank you, Cindy, so much. It's been fun. I hope you'll come
Yeah,
back.
thank you for
soon.
inviting me. I'll definitely be back.
Of course.
We'll get people should find out more of their moon phases. We could talk about that too, and then whatever comes up with the excitement of 2023.
Whee! Here we go. All right.
Okay, so Wendy, next week's show, I don't think we've got anything quite planned yet.
Not quite yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we will. I mean, I'm itching to do more monsters, but I'm always itching to do monsters.
Well, then we'll find some monsters, by golly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, folks, the video will be up on YouTube within 24 hours, and we recorded directly to Spreaker. So if you're a audio on demand person, once I shut this off, give it a minute.
One quick interjection. It's the question, Cindy, do you have a blog?
I do. I haven't written on it for a while, but it is on my website. And there's, if you go to the main page, you'll see the menu that says blog. So yes, there is a lot of interesting information in the blog that you could read. It's not just really articles.
Right.
So
Right.
thanks for asking.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Well then, folks, Happy New Year, and have a wonderful evening.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.